In this video, I'm going to show you how to use Blackboard discussion groups and give you some ideas of ways you might be able to use it within your course at Tri-County Technical College. In order to use the discussion group, you're first going to have to go into your course itself, and then we're going to go into the content menu. Again, this course might look a little bit different. This is a course that we use primarily for training, so it's not structured like a typical course, but we can still build within this without affecting anything, and the basic settings are the same. So I'm going to click on Content, and I'm actually going to go down to the folder that has my last name here. We typically do this within training. And I'm going to go in here and actually build content. Go to Assessments, Tools. And under Tools, you're going to see an option for a discussion board. This is one of the ways that you can get to the discussion board. So I'm going to click on Tools and go to Discussion Board. Click on that option. And there are a couple of different things here. Now, in this particular one, I don't have a pre-existing discussion board link, so I'm going to create new forum. I haven't made any within this environment. So if you haven't made any pre-existing ones, this is how it's going to show up as. So I want students to actually interact with a new topic. So I'm going to say Spanish flu discussion. Let's say this is for a medical course. And what I want to do here is I need to put enough of a description. I can put specific content in here. This can be used just like an assignment. Remember, this is a rich text box, so you can include as much content as you want. In this case, I'm actually going to go in and I'm going to go to YouTube and find a video that I want to include. And I'm going to include a video on the Spanish flu. And let's see, this is, I believe, the one I want to include. Yes, this is the one I want to include. So I'm going to go up and get the URL for this. You do have to copy the URL for this to work, the web address. I'm going to come back over here. I'm going to go to Insert Embedded Media, which is the little play looking button. I'm going to click that. And you'll notice, let me pull this back down into the screen so you can see all of it. I'm going to insert that URL. It automatically goes to an iframe, and you get a preview of what that particular video clip looks like. Okay, so I'm going to move this up so you can see it, and I'm going to hit Insert. Now, you won't be able to see the entire video in this screen. It basically shows what is an HTML placeholder. Once you go live with this discussion, you would be able to do that. So if I wanted to put my directions here, I would say view the video below and compare the response to the Spanish flu to that of the governmental response to the coronavirus. Okay, so I could put something like that. And I would probably bold that just to get the attention of people. Now remember, you don't ever want to use bold, italics, or colors to dictate meaning. So you can bring their attention to that visually, but you don't want to actually change the meaning of something by doing that. Okay, that's so that you're keeping in mind that if you have somebody who's using a screen reader, someone who's visually impaired and has a screen reader reading it to them, it's not going to be able to signify that kind of meaning. So there's your content, there's your directions. If the video is not quite big enough, you can highlight that, and let's say I want to make it bigger. I'm going to scroll down so I can see it, and I'm just going to stretch that out a little bit. I want it to be a bit bigger when they do it. Now they should be able to go full screen with it, but if they don't want to go full screen, I'm going to go a little bit bigger than that even. Let's make it a little bit bigger, a little bit easier to see. There we go. So our video will be that wide. Here's our directions. I'm going to italicize that. I always like to just visually, I think it brings their attention to it. You can also put the video center so that it shows center oriented there. Now we're going to go down beyond that. Do we want it available immediately? Possibly, if you don't want it to show up immediately, it would say no. And then maybe this is a discussion that you want to become available tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. We're going to go ahead and set our time. Now, you don't have to make it available at a certain time. You can just make it available immediately. But if you want to set it up in a situation where, excuse me, where you want to work ahead, you can set your display after. You can also use your display until. So if you want to make it available until a certain time and then have it cut off, you can do that as well. In this case, I'm going to say it's going to become available tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Excuse me. Now, the next thing down is the viewing threads and replies. Standard view is they can see it as soon as they log in. They can also see previous posting as soon as they log in. If I want them to create a thread in order to view other threads in the forum, I'm going to click here. And what that means is they can see all the information in this information box. They can see the video, but they can't see any of their classmates' posts until they've posted. Most instructors prefer to do that, because then you can't copy anyone else's content. You have to come up with your own response, and then you can actually post a response. So if that's the case, I might come and compare the response to the coronavirus. Your answer should be at least 100 words, and you should respond to 2 of your classmates' posts to receive full credit. Okay, so not only do they have to post, I've given them a minimum amount that they should post, and they have to respond to 2 of their classmates in order to receive full credit. So now they can't copy anybody else's work. They have to post their own. I've given them a minimum requirement, and I've also put out an expectation that they should also be posting responses to others. So it's not even they just post it and move on. They have to actually look through the other students' content and see if there's anything they can respond to. The next content piece down here is grading. You can choose to not grade. My experience has been if you don't grade, unless you just have some really, really good students, they're probably not going to do a whole lot. So I would suggest that you put some kind of grade attached to it. Doesn't have to be huge. You can make it 10 points. That's fine. It doesn't have to be a huge amount of points or a huge amount of weight. Show participants in need grading status after every how many posts. So that's going to just give you a reminder in the gradebook settings that you need to grade their posts. The due date, let's say it needs to be done by, let's say we're posting it tomorrow at 8. I want them to view and reply by Monday at 5 p.m. Okay, so they have to have their initial responses and their 2 replies by 5 p.m. If they don't, it's going to show it as being late. They can also subscribe if they want to. I don't usually turn this off. We don't have a lot of students who subscribe to it. What it would do is it would actually send them a notification through Blackboard every time somebody either posts something new that they haven't seen or responds to their particular post. I don't tend to do that a whole lot. If you have very specific criteria for what they're supposed to post or what their responses should include, you can include a rubric. Rubrics are a little more complicated to put in, so there will probably be additional training on creating and including rubrics at a later date. I am not going to get into the details of that here because that would be a significant amount of time to include here, but we will include some guides later on how to build rubrics in addition to some additional training if you're interested in that, so just keep your eyes open for that. They can also attach files, and they can use replies with quotes. So if they want to quote somebody else's reply and pull that down into their response, they can do that. They can post tags and they can also allow members to rate posts. So if you want to do that, you can do that as well. You can rate posts, and they can be bumped up in rating and that kind of stuff. You can also force moderation of posts, meaning that you have to actually moderate and review them before they become public if you choose to do that. So if you have a group where people tend to get offended very easily, if you're dealing with a topic that might be a little controversial, you're concerned that somebody might get offended easily, something of that nature, you can choose to do that if you want to. What that's going to do is notify you if you have posts that are waiting to be moderated. Once we've gone through all of these settings, we're going to go down all the way through. We're going to go ahead and hit submit. Once we've done that, we're going to select a discussion board forum, select Spanish discussion flu, and then we're going to hit next. Now, here's the other thing about this. We're going to click on, we want to put in the description, in the text, kind of directions as to what they're going to be doing. You don't necessarily have to put everything that's in the description of the discussion board, but you do want to include enough to let them know what they're going to be doing. So in this discussion, you will be viewing a video about the 1918 Spanish flu and responding to a prompt. To access the discussion board, you will need to click on the Create Thread button, and I'll show you what that looks like here in just a minute. And again, always go back and double check your spelling and that kind of stuff too. I catch myself doing that a lot. So you're going to put that in. Available, yes or no. Some of the same stuff here. I want it displayed tomorrow at 8 a.m. So I don't want them going ahead until I'm ready for them to actually do it. Okay, I'm going to hit submit. Now you're going to come down here and it should show up in the bottom, Spanish flu discussion. You'll notice it's not showing up yet. It says it will be available after March 19th at 8 a.m. Now if I click on this, it's going to take me into the discussion. The description here already tells me, if I go back, go all the way to the bottom, it always goes to the bottom of your page, keep that in mind when you're putting stuff in. It tells me here, in this discussion, you'll be viewing a video about the 1918 Spanish flu and responding to a prompt. To access the discussion board, you'll need to click on the Create Thread button. So when I click here, notice now there is a Create Thread button. If I click that, now I have access to the actual prompt. So here's the directions, here's the video, and right down here you have to add a subject. So they can add Spanish flu response. They can type in whatever they want. I think the government has a lot more in terms of resources and ability to communicate now than they ever did in 1918. Okay, obviously that's not 100. What was it? I said 100 words. And the nice thing is it tells you how many words right here on the bottom corner, so they have a really good idea of how many they have. Once they do that, they can come down, they can put whatever they want to in here, they can highlight, they can bold and do colors, whatever you want to allow them to do. And then they hit submit. And you'll see here now, my post is here. If there are other posts, they would show. The most recent post goes at the top, but any others would show further down. So if I created another one, I could say, I'll just show you so you can see what they look like. The technology was much more rudimentary then than what we have now. Okay, so there's another one. Hit submit, and you'll see now there's two different. So if now I wanted to come here and respond, I could do that. So I would just click reply, come down, and I could reply to it. That is true, but don't you think the constant media coverage has made it more difficult for people in the modern era? Okay, so anyway, you can post whatever you want to in here, replies, that kind of stuff. So you start to get a whole thread of comments and replies and everything in here. So the idea is that you have this whole thread of communication going on in here, and it does show the most recent at the top, and then it continues further down. There's a variety of ways you can use this. One of the ways that we talk about in e-learning where this is really, really useful is to create what's referred to as an I have a question board. So if I go into a discussion board, I want to create a new one, create a forum, and I go in here and I call it I have a question. And then in here, I would just say, please post any questions you have about the course. In the post, include your topic in the post title. This helps other students find answers to common questions they may also have. Okay, so the idea here, and I'm going to go ahead and make that a little bit bigger. The idea here is if you post it this way, students can, I would just leave this standard view, I would leave it available. This does not need to be graded or anything like that. But what this does is it can go into, it can actually go over here even in like a home page kind of setting. And what that does is it gives them the ability to go here anytime they have a question, and they can post that there. And anytime you just encourage your students, before you email me, before you call me, anything like that, go check the I have a question discussion board first, because if there are other students who have already asked that question, there may be answers there already. Students can also share resources there. So if they've asked a question and gotten an answer through an email, they can then post resources there. That can be research resources, that can be a lot of different things. So that's one way of doing it. Another thing that you can do is referred to as a muddy paper, or muddiest question paper, muddiest concept paper. So for instance, you could say a muddy paper for Unit 1. What is the one concept from Unit 1 that you found the hardest to understand? And you have each student fill this out. And you do this, before you review for the Unit 1 test. You can make this for a grade. Just have it where it's maybe for 5 points. Nothing huge. But let's say our test is on the 27th. Well, I'm going to do this on maybe the 24th. We might review, let's say the 23rd. We might be planning on reviewing on the 25th. So I'm going to make this due the 23rd by 8 p.m. And the reason I'm doing that is it gives me information to be able to go back and see if there are common problems. So if I post this, and I say, okay, for Unit 1, I can actually put this into the end of my Unit 1 module or folder, and I assign this as an assignment, then the students actually can go in, and it gives me some formative information, some formative assessment information. Basically, what it tells me is it just 1 or 2 students that are having problems with a certain concept, or could I potentially have 5 or 6 students who all have issues with the same issue, with the same concept. So if I come in here and I have 5 or 6 threads here, and they all deal with the same concept, then when I'm reviewing for that particular unit test, that unit exam, or whatever assessment you're doing, I already know that in essence, I'm going to have to be really careful to make sure and review that content more thoroughly. So what I'm looking at there, and I just hit the wrong thing, so give me just a second to go back to the right window. There we go. It's going to give me the ability to review over this to make sure that I'm going over the concepts that the majority of students, or at least more students, are commonly struggling with. So muddy paper is one way you can use a discussion. Again, you can use it for reviews. reviewing concepts. You can do videos. You can include articles in there. You can use it for an I have a question board, things of that nature. Think outside the box. You can use it for introductions for students at the beginning of a course, a lot of different things. But that is the basics of discussion boards, different ways that you can use it, the basic setup and use of the discussion board. I will show you real quickly, just within this one, if I need to grade the discussion forum, I can go in here. I would just click on that grade discussion forum button, and I could go through each one and actually just put in the grade that way. I can set grade. I would be able to see their individual posts. This one didn't have one, so if there is none, then I would just put 0. If I went back and they had posted something and it met the criteria, then I could put that. I could also put feedback here and then just hit submit, and it's going to show up for them. So there's some nice features built in here. I can also go in and actually be able to scroll through with the individual students as well. So there's a lot of different things that we can play with here as we're working. Keep in mind, discussions are something that you really have to work with the students to get more in-depth feedback, and not just yes I agree or no I don't agree. But it takes some practice. So just continue working on it. Think about what you can be doing and practice. Remember, this again is kind of a triage scenario right now. We're working as hard as we can to give support for you. We will have further support coming out, and in the meantime, just do the best you can. Practice with your students, give them some time to get used to this e-learning scenario, and keep your eyes open for some further resources and support as we move forward, and let us know where we can help you. Thank you, and have a good one.